Hello, my name's Ruth Ayres and I'm the Mental Health Project Manager at Youthscape, and I'm here to talk to you a little bit about our brand new resource, What If? What If has been done by Youthscape in partnership with the Mind and Soul Foundation. So myself and Rachel Gardner and a small team of youth workers here at Youthscape came up with the idea of What If, and then we worked closely in partnership with Dr. Kate Middleton, not the Kate Middleton, Dr. Kate Middleton, who works in the Mind and Soul Foundation and is a doctor of psychology. I should probably start by telling you what the game isn't. This game is not a diagnostic resource and it is not a therapeutic resource. It is about emotional literacy around the area of anxiety. And what we really wanted to do is give you as youth workers and social workers and teachers and parents and whoever you might be that have got your hands on this resource, we wanted to give you the opportunity to explore this notion of anxiety with the young people that you're working with. When you get the box, before you do anything else, I absolutely urge you to read the Facilitator's Guide. This guide is packed not only with the game ideas, but also some really helpful information that's been written by Dr. Kate around this notion of anxiety. And we can't stress enough how much you need to read this. It's so vitally important. If you're anything like me, you'll get the box and rip it open and try to find your own way of playing the games, which is fine, but it's really important that you verse yourself in this game and what anxiety is and isn't. So the first game is really simple. You'll just need your question cards and your answer cards. And it's really simple. What you do is you lie these two packs of cards face down on the table. So you want them with the card side down on the table with the A or the Q facing up. And you essentially ask your young people that you're playing with to take it in turns to turn over a question card. So they might turn over the question card that says, I'm walking into a friend's party when I notice, and then they turn over an answer card, and it might say, everything I do is being watched live by millions of people on YouTube. And the premise of this game is that it's really important that we help to lower what young people feel about anxiety. Lots and lots of young people out there feel I'm getting anxious, or I am anxious, that means I'm going to have a panic attack. And we wanted to start off this resource by lowering that feeling and that apprehension about anxiety by just having a really fun game. So once you've turned them all over, you could ask the young people to repair them into situations that might be a bit more realistic and might make them feel anxious. And then you can ask them to come up with their own. So they could pick one of the question cards. So I might pick the one that says, I'm walking into a friend's party when I notice. My absolute worst would be everybody's dressed as clowns or everybody's dressed as Father Christmas. I know, bit of a weird one. So you can really help them to explore what would be their worst feeling around anxiety. And that's just a game to really start to get them talking, and it is really good fun. Then in the Facilitator's Guide, we go on to a little bit of a true or false game. Now there's a couple of ways that you could do that with your young people. You could, if you've got enough space, you could make one side of the room true and the other side false and read out the statements and get them to choose. If you've got less space, you could get the young people to put their hands up or call out. So you've got questions like, girls feel more anxious than boys. And they have to make the decision on that. So you can read through those with them. And what that's really helping them to do is to think a little bit more deeply about anxiety. And it really is just a bridge from the first game into the second. But it's really helpful and will definitely get them thinking. So one of the things we discussed a lot with Dr. Kate is that anxiety affects us both in our body and in our mind. So the next game, you need to make sure you've got your body cards and your mind cards. And split the young people that you're working with into groups and give one group the mind cards and one group the body cards. And start off by asking them something along the lines of anxiety feels like, and get them to fill in blanks. Get them to start to talk to you about what it feels like in their body and in their mind when they feel anxious. Start to have a discussion with them. Start to help them to see that this emotion is something that affects us both in our body and our mind. And then back in the facilitator's guide, there's a list of scenarios that you read out. So one of the scenarios could be a teacher informs you that the deputy head wants to see you after class. And essentially what you're getting the young people to do is to figure out what would be happening in their body around that. So you could have things like, I feel a bit sick, I've got a racing heart, I feel hot and flustered. They're all the things that are physically happening to us in our body. And the mind group might say that in their mind they're worried. In their mind they're becoming annoyed and irritable. In their mind they're what we call ruminating, which is where we can't stop thoughts going round and round our head. And you help them to see that each of these scenarios will have both a physical response in our body and a mental response in our brain. And just explore this with the young people that you're working with. Start to ask them questions about when people might feel anxious. Maybe you could ask them, when you feel anxious, what might help? If we do feel anxious, why would this help us in those situations? For example, if I'm about to step on stage and speak to 3,000 people in a school assembly, feeling a bit anxious might give me the adrenaline and the buzz that I need. If I'm about to step out in front of a bus, it might be those feelings of anxiety that stop me and actually pull me back. So this is about us unpacking and exploring a little bit more about what happens in our body and our mind, and it's just taking that notion and idea of anxiety a little bit deeper. In game 3, you will need your anxiety scale. So this is where we introduce the notion of panic, and we differentiate the scale of anxiety. And Rachel Gardner and I, with Dr. Kate, really thought long and hard about this. How do we help young people to see that if they're at a 1 on an anxiety scale, it doesn't mean that the next second they're going to have a panic attack? So you have number 1, which is a sunshine, which is essentially I'm okay, I don't feel anxious, everything's good. You have number 2, which is part cloud, part sunny, starting to get a little bit more anxious now. You have number 3, which is cloud, starting to get anxious. You have number 4, which is rain, I'm really feeling anxious. And you have number 5, which is thunder and lightning, which is the step before we hit panic. The really interesting thing to remember is if you're ever working with somebody who is having a panic attack, it's really good to just let them get through that. So it's about helping them to breathe. It's about helping the brain to be flooded with oxygen. You don't want to be asking them in the moment of the panic attack, tell me what's wrong, what's happening for you. You just want to get them breathing very deeply, calming themselves down, and then perhaps you can have those conversations afterwards. So what you do with this game is it's very simple. You can either put the weather chart down as a scale on the table from 1 to 5, or if you've got a bit more space, you could put them around the room and ask young people to go to how they feel when you read out the scenarios. And you simply read out the scenarios with them again. You have other conversations and you talk about where they would put themselves on the scale. So for example, it might be, you're sat at home watching TV and a spider runs out across the floor. That for me would very clearly be a sum. It wouldn't panic for me that much. I wouldn't be that bothered about it. It might be you've got terrible toothache and you realise you've got to go to the dentist. That would be sending me there. So it's about helping young people to see that people feel anxiety around different things, and that anxiety is definitely a scale. And the spider running out in front of the floor might make me start as a 1, but actually as it got closer and I saw that it was a bit bigger, I might go to a 2. But that it's very rare we go from 1 to panic in one foul swoop. And then after you've read out some scenarios and you've played that game for a bit, you can introduce the notion of panic. What is it when panic sets in? You could reuse the body and mind cards if you wanted to. You could ask young people to say if you're at a 3, what's happening in your body, what's happening in your mind. You can flip back and forwards between those 2 games. And the whole purpose of this is to help young people to have the emotional literacy, tools and language to talk about anxiety being a scale, a 1 to 5 scale, and then panic. And then finally, we didn't just want to leave young people there, we wanted to give them some tools to interrupt their anxious thoughts. So the final set of cards are these ones with lots and lots of different ideas of what can help us when we're anxious. So for example, I've got breathe it, which on the other side says I can focus on slowing my breathing down, I can hum along to a tune I love. This floods my body and my brain with oxygen and helps me to feel calm. We've got things like move it. I can do things every day to help lower my anxiety and help me feel better about my life. We've got things like spot it. I can spot the warning signs when I'm experiencing anxiety. I don't need to wait until anxiety becomes overwhelming or hits panic before I do something to deal with it. So what we wanted to do with this is we wanted to help young people think about tools that they can use, either on their own or with someone else. One of them is Talk It. I can talk to a trusted adult or friend. And we wanted to help them to interrupt this thought process of anxiety. And in this game, what you do is you ask the young people to lay out in a pyramid style which ones would work for them. So for me, Talk It is a big one, as is Write It and probably Breathe It or Pray It. So they would be my go-to ones if I was starting to feel anxious. And what you want to help young people do in this game is really think about what the tools are to stopping anxiety. We really hope here at Youthscape and with the Mind and Soul Foundation that this resource helps you to help young people become better at understanding and talking about anxiety. If you have any questions or anything that arises while you're playing the game, please feel free to get in touch with us, and you can do that at info@selfharm.co.uk. That's info@selfharm.co.uk. We really hope you enjoy playing the game What If, and we hope that it helps the young people that you're working with.